She whispered, "Call me mommy." Then tried to walk out the door, with my daughter in her arms. That was the moment I knew, this wasn't just family tension. It was obsession. And it nearly stole my child from me, during Thanksgiving dinner. Hi, I'm Claire Whitman. I live in Boulder, Colorado, with my husband Adam and our daughter Sophie. She's 6, whip-smart, curious, and just old enough to memorize every line from her favorite picture books. Thanksgiving was supposed to be a peaceful break. We'd been looking forward to it for weeks, coffee in the morning, fall leaves outside the window, the smell of sage and turkey in the air. Sophie twirled around the kitchen that morning in her red velvet dress, a gift from her Aunt Becca last Christmas. "She'll love seeing me wear this," Sophie said with a smile that melted my heart. Adam had just gotten off the phone with his mom. Then he turned to me, his face unreadable. "Becca's coming today." I blinked. Seriously? She hadn't been to a family gathering in 3 years. Fertility treatments, emotional breakdowns, that's all we'd heard. No one talked about it openly. We were told to be sensitive. When Becca finally arrived, she looked thinner. Quiet. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on Sophie. And then she dropped her purse and walked straight to my daughter. "My angel," she whispered, pulling Sophie into a hug that lasted too long, far too long. That was the first moment something felt wrong. The second? Was when she looked at me, and didn't let go. We hadn't even taken our coats off. Becca knelt down, held Sophie tight, and whispered something into her hair, too soft for me to catch. Then she looked up and smiled at me. That kind of smile people wear when they think they know something you don't. I told myself I was just being overprotective. That she was just emotional. That maybe I was the one being too cautious. But inside, something shifted. She stayed close to Sophie all afternoon. Never more than 2 steps behind her. While the cousins played tag outside, Becca sat on the porch swing, patting the spot beside her, and read aloud from a children's book I didn't recognize. And every time Sophie giggled, Becca's eyes filled with tears. Adam noticed too. He didn't say anything, but his jaw clenched the way it always does when he's on edge. We both watched, waiting for a reason to step in. It came sooner than I thought. Just before dinner, Becca leaned in towards Sophie and asked, clear as day, "Do you want to come stay at Aunt Becca's house this weekend?" Sophie looked surprised. "Like, a sleepover?" Becca nodded. "We could bake cookies, watch movies, and go to the park. You could even sleep in the big guest bed, the one with the stars on the ceiling." She said it like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. I stepped in. "She's still young," I said gently. "She doesn't do overnights outside the family yet." Becca turned slowly, her smile still in place. "But I am family," she said, voice low. And maybe it was the way she said it, or the way she held Sophie's hand so tight. But something about it made the room feel smaller. Sometimes the scariest moments don't come with shouting or doors slamming. Sometimes they come wrapped in quiet smiles and good intentions. If you've ever had to say no to someone you love, just to keep your child safe, you'll understand what that moment felt like. It's not anger. It's not fear. It's something colder than both. That night, at the dinner table, Becca moved from her assigned seat and slid in next to Sophie. No one said a word. She carefully wiped Sophie's mouth, refolded her napkin, even spooned more mashed potatoes onto her plate. "She doesn't like those," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Becca looked up. "She just hasn't tried them the way I make them." Helen, Adam's mom, laughed a little too hard, though her eyes didn't quite follow. "Becca's always been good with kids," she said, but there was something brittle in her voice. I didn't laugh. Adam didn't either. After dessert, Becca stood up and announced, "Sophie and I are going to wash our hands." I stood, too. But they were already halfway down the hall. By the time I caught up, she'd led Sophie to the guest room and was showing her a drawer full of folded pajamas. I hadn't seen them before. One pair even looked familiar. "Sophie, honey," I said. My voice sharper than I meant it to be. "Come help Grandma with the dishes." Becca turned to me. "I already said she could stay the night." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "She's comfortable here. It's just one night." I stepped closer. "We never agreed to that." And then Becca said it again, the same whisper I'd heard earlier. Only this time I was close enough to hear. "Call me Mommy." There are moments in life when your entire body reacts before your brain does. My hands went cold. My throat locked up. And Sophie looked confused. Not scared. Just torn. Adam appeared behind me. Calm but firm. "Let's get going," he said, picking up Sophie and thanking everyone with a polite smile. Becca didn't argue. But she didn't move either. She just stood there, watching us leave. We didn't say goodbye. Adam carried Sophie straight to the car, her little arms wrapped around his neck. I followed with the diaper bag, not because we needed it, but because I needed an excuse to leave without turning back. No one chased after us. Not yet. The sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows over Helen's perfectly trimmed lawn. The warmth of the holiday had vanished. All that was left was a cold wind, and something I couldn't name yet, but could feel pressing on my chest. We pulled out of the driveway in silence. Sophie yawned in the back seat, her curls falling over one eye. "She said I could stay, Mommy," she mumbled. "She made space for me." Adam's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "You're coming home with us, baby girl." She nodded sleepily, but didn't smile. Neither did I. 10 minutes into the drive, Adam broke the silence. "She wasn't supposed to be there today." I turned. "What do you mean?" "Mom told me Becca wouldn't be coming. That she wasn't ready. That she was still adjusting to medication." My heart sank. "So what changed?" He shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe Mom thought seeing Sophie would help." Help. The word hit me sideways. Becca didn't need help. She needed boundaries. She needed treatment. She needed to understand that Sophie is not hers. Half an hour later, we pulled into the garage. I didn't even take off my shoes. I carried Sophie to her bed, brushed the leaves out of her hair, and kissed her forehead. She was asleep in seconds. But I wasn't. Not when Adam's phone buzzed 5 times in a row before he even stepped back into the living room. "Is it her?" I asked. He nodded. The screen lit up with a message. "You forgot something." Another. "She left her drawing book." Another. "She left me." The final one made my stomach turn. Give her back. Sometimes, silence is louder than screams. Sometimes, obsession wears the face of someone you've trusted your whole life. If you've ever had to protect your child from someone inside the family, you know this kind of fear. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't knock, it seeps in. Adam didn't answer. He turned his phone over, face down. But the messages didn't stop. By midnight, she'd sent over 30. By 1 a.m., Helen called. "Where are you?" she demanded. "At home," Adam said evenly. "Why?" There was a pause on the line, then a sigh. "She's out of control." "What happened?" "She's searching the neighborhood. Walking around the block yelling Sophie's name. She's crying. Screaming. Said she had a dream that Sophie was taken from her." My hands started to shake. "She wasn't just upset, Mom," Adam said. His voice low, almost pained. "She's unstable. And I hate that it's come to this." "I know," Helen whispered. "She locked herself in the guest room. Said she's preparing it for her daughter. Said she needs her back by morning or she'll disappear again." Adam looked at me. then at the door. Then at his phone. "We need to call someone," I said. "Now." It took 3 calls and 1 emergency consultation with Becca's psychiatrist, someone Helen finally admitted she'd been speaking to quietly, before a mental health crisis team was dispatched. At 2:11 a.m., an ambulance arrived at Helen's house. Helen stayed on the line with us the whole time. "She's refusing to come out," she whispered. "She's holding the red dress." My throat closed. "She keeps saying God gave her a second chance," Helen continued. "That Sophie is her miracle." The rest of that night is a blur. I remember the cold kitchen tile under my feet. The smell of leftover pumpkin pie I no longer wanted. The sound of Adam's voice when he came back from checking Sophie one last time. "She's still sleeping," he said. "Peaceful." But there was nothing peaceful about that night. Nothing at all. We didn't go back to Thanksgiving that year. And we never brought Sophie back to that house again. But Becca wasn't the villain in my mind. She was broken. And no one had wanted to look closely enough to see the cracks. It happened faster than I could process. One moment, Becca was slicing pie. The next, Sophie was gone. Her chair was empty. Her napkin still folded. Her plate still half full. "Where's Sophie?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Helen looked up from her coffee. "She's probably with Becca." A chill went down my spine. "No," I said quietly. "Becca's right there." But she wasn't. The spot she'd just occupied, right next to Sophie, was now empty too. Adam was already on his feet, scanning the room. "I'll check the hallway," he muttered. Moments later, he called out, "Claire. Pantry. Now." I turned the corner and found him cradling Sophie in his arms. She looked dazed. "She was in the guest room," he said, breath sharp. "Alone. Door locked." Becca had left her in the dark. The guest room door locked. On the bed, an open suitcase filled with pajamas and snacks, like she was planning a trip neither of us agreed to. "But I brought her here to keep her safe." Adam stepped aside and motioned for me to go in. "What?" I whispered. "Just trust me." He pulled us into the pantry and closed the door behind him with a quiet click. The space was small, lined with shelves of flour and soup cans. It smelled like cinnamon and something old. Sophie clung to my waist, breathing fast. Adam crouched beside us, finger to his lips. "Listen." Footsteps. Slow at first. Then uneven. Closer. "Where are you, sweetie?" Becca's voice floated down the hallway, soft and syrupy. Like a lullaby sung by someone who never learned the words. "Sophie, come on. Baby. Let's go watch our movie." She wasn't calling out like someone playing hide and seek. She was searching, like a mother who'd lost her child. But Sophie wasn't hers. There's a kind of fear that doesn't scream. It seeps in slowly, and makes your body feel like glass. Like one wrong breath might shatter everything. If you've ever had to hide with your child, praying the person looking for them doesn't find you, then you know the kind of terror that takes over. Not loud. Not frantic. Just cold and quiet and final. The pantry door had a thin gap at the bottom. Through it, I saw the shadows move past. Becca's feet. Then her voice again. "Sophie, did you go upstairs? Don't be shy." The fridge opened. A drawer slammed. "Grandma," she called. "Where's Sophie?" No one answered. A moment later, the shadows paused. Right in front of the pantry. Sophie whimpered. I pressed my hand gently over her mouth, whispering, "It's okay. Mommy's right here." Adam didn't move. Becca stood there for at least a full minute. Maybe 2. Then came the whisper. So quiet I could barely hear it. "Come with me. Baby. You're mine now. My whole body tensed. Adam's arm instinctively came across both of us. And then, mercifully, the footsteps moved away. We waited. 2 minutes. 3. In the distance, we heard voices. Helen. Uncle Ben. Someone laughing nervously. Then Becca again, louder this time. She was just here. Someone took her. Adam opened the pantry door a sliver and peeked through. Empty hallway. Back door, he mouthed. I nodded. Sophie didn't ask questions. She just held on tight as we slipped out through the kitchen, past the warm smells of stuffing and pie. And into the cold. The backyard was dark, but familiar. Adam carried Sophie. I grabbed the car keys. No one followed. Until we reached the gate. From inside the house, we heard Becca's voice rise. Sophie? A pause. Then something that sounded like breaking glass. I didn't look back. Adam opened the car, placed Sophie inside, and shut the door with shaking hands. The engine roared to life, the sound felt too loud, too final. We pulled away as Helen's porch light flicked on behind us. And just like that, Thanksgiving was over. That drive home was quiet. But not peaceful. I held Sophie's tiny hand the whole way. Her fingers barely moved. Adam checked the rearview mirror more times than I could count. When we finally parked, he turned off the engine and just sat there. Eyes forward. Breathing hard. She had the suitcase packed, he said. And a booster seat in the car. I didn't answer. Because I couldn't. Adam didn't speak as we walked inside. He just locked the front door, double-checked it, and stood still in the foyer like he didn't quite know what to do next. I went to check on Sophie, who had fallen asleep in the car. She was curled under her blanket now, the red velvet dress tucked beside her on the pillow like a comfort toy. She looked peaceful. But I wasn't. Not even close. I poured a glass of water with trembling hands, then sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. That's when Adam's phone buzzed again. And again. And again. Becca. You didn't say goodbye. She left her drawing book. She forgot me. She's mine. Each message sharper. More frantic. More detached from reality. Adam placed the phone down, face up. I watched as the screen lit up every few seconds with another new message. Why are you doing this? You promised. Don't take her from me again. I never promised her anything, Adam said. Finally breaking the silence. His voice was low, exhausted. She's not well, I replied. I know. I mean, really not well. This isn't grief, Adam. This is something else. He nodded slowly. I've seen it before, he said. After the last miscarriage. She stopped going out. She started collecting baby items. Lying to shop clerks. Telling them she had a daughter. He ran a hand over his face. I told Mom. She said we needed to be patient. That Becca just needed time. That maybe, if she could spend more time with Sophie. My stomach twisted. She said that to you? About our daughter? He looked at me. She mentioned letting Becca take her for a weekend. Just a weekend. She thought it might help, stabilize her. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Stabilize her? She tried to walk out with Sophie. Adam didn't argue. Because there was no defense for that anymore. Sometimes. The scariest breakdowns don't look like screaming or violence. They look like quiet delusion. Soft voices. Smiles that don't match the eyes. And when it's family, it's even harder to see it for what it is. Just then, the phone rang again. This time, it was Helen. Adam hesitated, then answered. Mom. Her voice on speaker was tight. frantic. Where are you? We're home. Becca's gone. I froze. Gone where? Adam asked. I don't know, Helen whispered. She stormed out. She said she's going to find Sophie. Did she take her car? Yes. Adam mouthed the word, license plate. I wrote it down. Helen continued. She said Sophie is the child she lost. That God gave her back. A long pause. She said, this time I won't let anyone take her from me. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. She's not just confused, Mom, Adam said, his voice flat. She's in psychosis. Helen didn't respond. He continued, you need to call someone. Her doctor. The clinic. Someone. I can't, she whispered. It's Thanksgiving. They're closed. I took the phone. Then we call 911. By 1:47 a.m., we were on the phone with a psychiatric crisis hotline. Helen gave the address. The details. The symptoms. 10 minutes later, an emergency unit was dispatched. An ambulance. 2 crisis intervention workers. Helen stayed on the line. She came back, she whispered. She's in the driveway. She's crying. Another message pinged on Adam's phone. Becca again. I saw her in the window. She waved. Please let me talk to her. Then. I need her. I'll be better this time. The next hour passed like smoke, there, but hard to grasp. Helen kept narrating. They're talking to her now. She's not making sense. She's saying the crib is ready. That she has a new bottle warmer. That she and Sophie are leaving for Arizona in the morning. Adam dropped his head into his hands. Helen's voice cracked. They're taking her. She's going to the psychiatric center. For observation. 72 hours. Maybe longer. And then, silence. At 3:10 a.m., Adam finally spoke again. She's gone? For now, I said. We both looked toward Sophie's room. She was still asleep. Still unaware. And I prayed she'd stay that way. I crawled into bed beside her and held her hand. And somewhere, beneath the exhaustion, the fear, and the fury, I felt something else. Grief. For Becca. For Helen. For the family we thought we were having Thanksgiving with. 3 months passed. The snow had melted from our front steps. Sophie had switched from winter boots to her favorite light-up sneakers. And we were learning how to live with the silence that followed the storm. Becca hadn't contacted us directly. No calls. No texts. Her phone was likely disconnected, or taken from her. But one morning, a cream-colored envelope arrived in our mailbox. No return address. Just our names. Written in small, careful handwriting. Inside was a letter. Not typed. Not rushed. Just, honest. Dear Claire, Adam, and Sophie. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to say I'm sorry. I've read and reread everything I wrote you that night. The messages. The calls. The things I said. I scare myself. Truly. It's hard to explain how my mind worked back then. The line between memory and reality, it blurred without warning. I thought I was healing. I told everyone I was okay. But in truth, I had started believing that Sophie was mine. That she had returned to me. The doctors say I built a story in my head. That I couldn't accept what I'd lost. So I made new meaning. I thought I was loving her. But it wasn't love. It was possession. And I'm horrified by that. I paused reading. My fingers tightened slightly on the paper. Adam sat beside me, still, eyes down. Sophie was in the backyard, painting the porch steps with water and a brush, a game Adam invented to keep her busy. She was laughing. Free. I returned to the letter. I want to thank you, Claire. For protecting her. Even when it meant protecting her from me. And Adam. I'll never blame you for calling. You saved 3 people that night. Me included. I'm in treatment now. Real treatment. Supervised, structured, and ongoing. And I'm learning about adoption. The ethical kind. With guidance. And approval. And waiting. This time, if I ever become a parent, it will be through truth. Not illusion. I will keep my distance for now. That's not a punishment. It's my responsibility. But if one day, you feel it's okay, I'd love to see her again. Even from afar. Even just a birthday photo. I want to remember what it's like to feel proud, not obsessed. With love. Becca. The kitchen felt quiet again. But not the heavy kind of quiet from that night. This was stillness. The kind that follows acceptance. Helen came over later that week. She brought a box of groceries, and a different energy. One I hadn't seen in years. She asked before stepping inside. She asked if Sophie wanted a hug, not assumed. She looked me in the eye when she said. I was wrong. We stood in the kitchen. Next to the coffee pot that hadn't moved since Thanksgiving. I confused sympathy with love, she admitted. I thought letting Becca be near Sophie was helping her. She paused, eyes wet. But I didn't think about what that might do to you. Or your daughter. Adam sat quietly at the table, listening. I stirred my coffee and said, it's okay to want to help your child. It's not okay to offer someone else's. Helen nodded. I've learned that boundaries aren't barriers. They're guardrails. To protect everyone, not to shut people out. Some lessons come quietly. Some arrive with sirens and broken trust. But the ones that stay? They're the ones that teach you to love better. Not more. Not louder. Just better. That spring, Sophie turned 7. She asked if Aunt Becca was still sad. I said, she's getting better. Sophie nodded. Then ran off to play. There was no big reunion. No dramatic apology in person. No promises to return to the way things were. Because we weren't going back. We were learning how to move forward, carefully. With space. With truth. With love that respects limits. On Sophie's birthday, a small envelope arrived. Inside was a handmade card. On the front, a drawing of 3 flowers. One big. One medium. One small. All rooted in the same soil. No words inside. Just a photo. Becca, smiling, standing beside a community garden with other women. Holding a potted plant. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. It was healing. And that was enough. The next Thanksgiving came quietly. No big family plans. No group texts about pie preferences or who would bring stuffing. Just the 3 of us, Adam, Sophie, and me, in our little house in Boulder, with a modest turkey and a pie from the grocery store. And it was enough. That morning, I woke to the sound of Sophie humming to herself in the kitchen. She had climbed onto a step stool and was stirring pancake batter, flour on her cheek, hair a tangled mess. Adam stood beside her, holding the spatula like a sous chef who knew he'd already lost control of the kitchen. I smiled. Not because everything was perfect. But because, for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to brace for anything. We lit a candle before dinner. One flame. No fanfare. Sophie asked if she could say something before we ate. Adam nodded. She stood on her chair. Hands clasped in front of her like a tiny minister. I'm thankful for Mommy, she said. And Daddy. And pancakes. Pause. And Aunt Becca. Even if she's not here. My eyes stung. Adam reached for my hand. Me too, I whispered. Me too. Later that evening, I found a small envelope tucked into our mailbox. No stamp. Just one word on the front. For Sophie. Inside was a hand-drawn Thanksgiving card, a cornucopia filled with sunflowers and apples and pumpkins. And tucked behind the card, a photo. Becca, smiling gently in a kitchen. Wearing a volunteer apron. Behind her, a table filled with small gift baskets labeled Families in Recovery. On the back of the photo, in neat handwriting. Still learning. Still grateful. Happy Thanksgiving. Healing doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes, it means going forward in a new way. With more space. More truth. And more care than before. Helen stopped by the next day. She brought apple cider and a box of books for Sophie. We sat on the porch and talked while Sophie chalked colorful stars across the sidewalk. Helen looked older, somehow. Not tired. Just softer. I never told you what Becca said before she left the hospital, she began. I turned toward her. She said she didn't want to erase what happened. She wanted to learn from it. To carry it. Not run from it. I exhaled slowly. That sounds right. It is, Helen said. Hard. But right. She paused. And I want you to know. I see you now. As a mother. As the one who held the line when no one else would. I didn't say anything at first. Then I whispered, thank you. The hardest part of all this wasn't Becca. It was the silence from everyone else when things started to go wrong. The subtle looks. The awkward laughs at the dinner table. The belief that family means always saying yes, even when it puts someone in danger. But now, we knew better. Real family isn't about forced closeness. It's about earned trust. It's not about blood, it's about safety. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is set a boundary they don't like. That December, Becca was approved for phase 2 of her treatment. She moved into an assisted transitional home and began mentoring other women going through grief-related mental health crises. She sent Sophie a watercolor painting of a tree, its roots tangled and deep, its leaves changing color. No words. Just color. And that was enough. Sophie kept the painting on her nightstand. She'd sometimes look at it before bed, tracing the branches with her finger. She didn't talk about Thanksgiving much. But when she did, she said things like, Aunt Becca got better because we loved her from far away. And she wasn't wrong. On Christmas morning, Adam and I watched Sophie tear through wrapping paper and giggle through the ribbons in her hair. And as I looked at our little living room, too small, slightly messy, full of light, I realized something. We didn't just protect Sophie that night. We protected the future. We drew a line in the sand and said, this is where love ends and danger begins. And that line? It didn't destroy our family. It saved it. Because love with no boundaries isn't love at all. It's fear dressed up as loyalty. And the bravest thing we did was choose better.